Hey folks, it's Ryan here from Magus Instrumentalis. We've been pretty hard at work the last couple of weeks, working on an update to the Polymaths suite, as well as our next set of modules. So we're going to keep it really short this week, but this is a kind of fun patch, so I hope you enjoy it. One of the modules that people have probably been the most confused by is a module I'm going to refer to in this video as VELO. And it's a velocity module, and what that means is it actually increases the rate of acceleration the higher you move past 5 volts. And as you move towards 0 volts, it decelerates and eventually moves towards 0. So that can be kind of confusing unless you sort of have the intended use in mind. I've talked previously about how this module is designed with a joystick in mind, so that instead of simply moving immediately to whatever particular voltage your joystick is set at. So let's say the range of your joystick is between 0 and 10 volts or -5 and 5 volts. If you move your joystick forward, in most cases, it would immediately jump to 5 volts, if you move it all the way forward. And if you move it all the way back, it'll immediately jump to -5. But what if you simply want to use it like you would use a joystick on a game controller? And when you move your joystick forward, your character moves forward at a certain speed, and the further you push it forward, the faster they go. With this patch, we have a very realistic emulation of how a car sounds. If what you mean by realistic is, let's say, a car sound on a Sega Mega Drive. So we have a very sort of primitive, crude version of engine sounds. And I wanted to show you how you could use a sequencer in order to emulate the changing of gears or the revving of an engine. So let's take a look at how this patch works. So the first thing you'll notice in this patch is that the signal flow moves from left to right. And the furthest module to the left is the pulses module from VCV. And when you click the left button, the corresponding output will emit a gate. That's hooked up to the sequence 3 object in VCV. And we're hooking that into the external clock input. Now, what that means is every time we click, the sequence advances 1 step. So you'll notice that the output of row 2 is hooked up to the input of VELO. And the output of VELO is being sent into the scope as well as the 8-vert module. And we're simply using that to attenuate the output. The attenuated output is then fed into the volt per octave input on the wavetable oscillator module from Audible Instruments. This is then hooked up to a mixer before being sent to the output. So this is about as simple a patch as you can get. Now, look what happens when we click the button on the pulses module. What you'll notice is as the sequence advances and the output of the sequence either increases or decreases, the rate of acceleration is what ends up changing, rather than the direct output. So you're not getting a high note necessarily as much as you're getting the acceleration towards that high note. Now, this can be really useful if you want to emulate mechanical things like an engine, for example, but you could also use it for anything that you want to create an acceleration for in your patch. And if you have sort of set points of acceleration, or if you've tuned the output of the sequencer in particular ways, you could potentially accelerate towards a different tempo with your clock, for example. There's lots of different ways you could use that in your patch, but this is the most simple. Well, that's all the time we have this week, but if you'd like to find out more, click the link in the description for our full playlist of tutorial videos. We'll be back next week with a deeper dive into using sequencing with the Ars Memoriam in order to create stepped modulation. If you don't mind, do us a favor and like, subscribe, or share this video if you enjoyed it. Thanks a bunch, and we'll talk to you soon.